deeper, but I have to stay afloat. It's noisy. Be a person you don't want. Can somebody take me other thing? Going to do. Where is the life I? Where's my childhood? Is this called living? I don't know. Where is the life I? Where's my childhood? Is this called living? I don't know. I don't wanna grow. Just live myself. I don't wanna grow. The things I left behind me. I don't wanna grow. Just live myself.
Hi everyone, welcome to Sorting Myself Out. My name is Ryan Holsapple. Today I want to talk about letting go of resentment. And this won't be a very long video. I just want to get some major bullet points out there to some of you who might be dealing with resentments, who could use this information to help work yourself through it. Resentments are a part of life in my experience. We come up against situations and people that trigger our own psychodynamics and bring up some feelings of anger, insecurity, bitterness, and just general sadness, grief, things like that. And a lot of times we have been actually wronged. Somebody else did something that affected us in a way that hurt us, and maybe in a way that wasn't acknowledged fully. And other times we might just be carrying forward resentments by proliferating them within ourselves, and it doesn't have as much to do with the external world. Both are situations that occur. Most of the time, it's a mix of both. The first question that I like to ask myself in dealing with a resentment, and I just went through this today in working with something that came up for me that was pretty tender in a relationship I have in my life, or I had in my life. And the first question I had to ask myself is, have I confronted myself and the situation assertively, honestly, and openly? What does that mean? It means, did I look at the situation and all the different dynamics going on and honestly assess it for what it was? And did I ask for what I needed? Or did I suppress what I needed and continue to allow it to go on without actually stepping in assertively and wait until it boils over? So when I'm in this type of situation, I try to look at, is there something that I need to say or confront with this individual in order to be fully within my integrity? And it might be something as simple as, hey, look, I'm really noticing that when you act this way, it affects me in this way. This is how I'm impacted by that act. And I would appreciate it if we shifted that dynamic, or you might even have to hold a more hard line and say, that's really not okay with me when you do that. That really doesn't fly with me. So you have to ask yourself, have I assessed or confronted the situation as realistic as it is within a particular context that you're in? Second is, have I examined and taken accountability for my part? A lot of times I resist or I turn away from my part in the situation because I'm hung up on the pain that I'm feeling as the person who's hurt. And I don't always look at what I might have added and how I might be accountable for the dynamic that's at play. So I try to take a look at how might I have fed into this, or how might I have set myself up to be in this situation, or maybe I did something that was harmful to the other person. So I just look at, is there something that I need to make an amends for, like they talk about in the 12-step programs, owning your part and making an amends. So that's kind of, you do both of those things together. First, you look at, am I addressing this assertively? Am I actually stating my needs, or am I allowing things to happen without speaking my voice? And if I'm not speaking my voice, what's holding me back? What sort of fears am I dealing with that are holding me back from trusting myself to speak up? And working through those can be really powerful in dealing with a situation. So once you go through that, examining the part, if there is an accountability to be taken, it's not either or. See, a lot of times we get stuck in this trap where we think, oh, if I have a part where I have been at fault, that negates the other person's part. We have to honor ourselves while at the same time honor any harm that we might have done to the other person. So what that might look like in my case is, if I did engage in the situation in a way that might have caused harm, or that is not in the best integrity the best standard that I hold myself to, then I can offer that amends and also still hold my own line and say, yeah, this is my part, and this is where I'm holding a boundary. This is where I'm holding a line. So both of those things are not mutually exclusive. We can have both of those things. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. If those two things have been done, a lot of times just going through those are enough to solve the resentment. However, there are some cases, like some of the stuff that I was dealing with today, where you've done those things and then still it's not resolved. Either the other person doesn't honor the boundary, or the line that you've presented, or the request that you've put out there for a need that's not getting met. And if that, or also what can happen is that the communication channels aren't very open, so there's not a whole lot of opportunity for resolution. So in a situation where you're not able to talk with that person, or there's just that, that bridge has already been crossed, then you're at step 3, which is looking at what parts of me are holding on to pain in this dynamic and continuing to replay it in my mind. I've now started to, if I still have the resentment and the situation's over and there's no hope of resolving it with that person, I have to examine, what am I replaying? Why do I continue to play this out within myself? And look at the sub-personalities, whether there's a self-sabotage, or a young child that feels sad, or a angry challenger that wants to fight, and look at how that dynamic might be continuing to proliferate the resentment. And that's really helpful because it can be illuminating and create awareness that we've internalized an external situation and played it within our own parts. And we do that a lot as human beings. We internalize external dynamics and they ping pong and pinball off of the different parts of who we are. And to stop that pinball process, seeing through into it and actually bringing awareness can be really helpful, and that'll create some space. The next step in this is to surrender, to let go, to allow it to move out of the body. And that's what I came to today, is that the young boy inside of me has every right to feel hurt, has every right to feel sad, has every reason to be upset. And at the same time, as my great mentor, Dr. Strachan, has taught me, nobody has the right to rent space in my head. And if they are, it's my responsibility to resolve that dynamic and to let it go and to go into healing. And so surrendering is really important, offering it up to a power greater than myself, whether you look at that spiritually or just as a gesture of psychological surrender, where you're allowing your body and your mind to let go of the tension, continuing to repeat a mantra of letting go, giving over, and watching it dissipate and dissolve, and then actually replacing it with something new, not just removing it, but actually bringing in a new vision of light, of love. Bring images into the psyche that replenish it and fill in that new space. A lot of times we think just let go and we don't fill in, we don't bring something in. It's important to introduce something else to actually bring the momentum of the psyche forward and get you moving on. And this process might be something you have to repeat throughout the days, throughout the week, throughout the months, because sometimes these things have a way of holding on and continuing to knock on our back door and say, hey, are you sure you're still letting go, or do you want to come back and revisit this this anger, this piece of being upset, sadness, whatever it may be? Now, that also might mean that there's something that I still need to learn from the situation that I haven't yet in some cases. But in other cases, it's also quite possible that it's just a temptation. It's a temptation to go back to that old neural pathway. And so you honor it, just like the Buddha invites his guests in for tea. I see you're here, and I'm not really interested in this particular conversation. I'm moving in this direction. So you pull an Aikido move with it, and you keep moving forward. That's what's been useful with me in dealing with resentments. I find that people tend to fall in one of two camps with resentments. One is they only focus on their own part, right? They get caught up in self-blaming. Oh, well, I probably just messed this up. And the height of this is people who get abused and then blame themselves. It's called retroflecting in Gestalt therapy. You turn inward on yourself when there's something actually outwardly wrong in the world. You blame it on yourself. And there's other people who take it to projection and anger, where they just focus on the other person. So those are kind of the typical, there's more ways that people cope with these things, a couple of the typical ways of dealing. I find that to synthesize this, and remember, it's both and, it's not either or, it's what part have I possibly played, and then also how can I be assertive and ask for what I need and be as direct as possible. And the chips fall away they may. Make that eye contact. Be clear, whether if it's over the phone, that's okay too. Just be clear about what it is that you're feeling and what it is you need, without putting in a jab, right? Without adding an extra twist and dropping a turd in the punch bowl, as Strachan likes to say. We don't need to bring it to that level. We can just state what is without twisting in extra anger or resentment. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I need. And then it's out of your hands after that point. So those are the ways I deal with resentments. I find that I cover all my bases if I look at it in those perspectives, and that it always comes out for the better. There are some that are more persistent than others. Like I said, as human beings, we come up against these things, some of us more than others, especially if we have high levels of sensitivity or inner child things that continue to beckon us and bring us into that really tender space within our hearts. That sensitivity can get turned towards our interpersonal interactions, and we can really spiral inward. And so if you look at all these steps, I think it could be helpful for you. I know it sure is for me and a lot of the people I've worked with in my practice. So thank you all for listening to this. I'll actually probably put just some bullet points in the description so that you can remember this if you want to check it out. And thank you all for being here. And I will be back soon. Hey, Michael, I see you here on the live chat. Daniel, I see you. Great to see you. Grizz, great to see you too. All of you who are here, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment and let me know what you think of what I shared with you today and what you would add to it, because a lot of times there's so much wisdom to be had in a group. You know what I mean? Like, we're all here listening and sharing together. So if you have a little tidbit that's like all the stuff that I said, plus here's another piece that might be helpful for people that really works well for you, because we're all human and we all experience life and we all have perspectives that might be useful. All right, everybody, I got to get going. I'm going to go ahead and put those steps in the description.
I've been hit by, but I have to stay afloat. It's not easy. Be a person you don't want. Can somebody take me other thing? Going to do? Where's the line?